The End of the Effing World is arguably my favorite story that I've ever seen, with reasons ranging from its heartbreaking, poignant story to its tender treatment of the incredibly vivid characters brought to life by fantastic performances, to the palette of every scene, to the structure of every episode that propels the story with effective brevity, to the soundtrack that hits home and makes me cry inside every single time. But among all this, James is one character that has surpassed my love for any other. And so this video is reasons why I love James from the End of the Effing World. The End of the Effing World, at first glance, might be your typical coming-of-age teen drama, which inevitably features angst at its finest, like exploration of identity, gender, sexuality, the teenagers' place in the world and coming into their own, as well as embracing the absolute chaos of adulthood. And there is often the angry teenager at the center of it all, embodying all those internal and external explorations. And then we have James, whose easy nature of obliging with what Alyssa tells him, as well as his taciturn and solitude-seeking persona, foster a welcoming absence of bombastic emotional outbursts or gestures.
Do you want me or do you just go along with things?
I want you.
James is so naturally passive, emotionally and physically, and his atypical teenage angst manifests in a way that is unique to the story, instead of ascribing to the formula of coming-of-age stories. While I do recognize that James's nature to keep to himself is one of the results from long-suppressed traumatic emotions, I still see it as his personality, to be gentle and quiet with his words and his emotions, even when he's starting to trust Alyssa and letting more of himself show. The journey forces James to develop his perspective on the world and his own idiosyncratic way of coping with life. But these external circumstances also provoke him to explore his internal landscape. The murder of Clive the rapist is a pivotal point, because after the incident, James starts to reflect on his self-diagnosed pathology and digs deep into his buried trauma to understand why he is the way he is and who he is becoming. The main driving point of James's subdued angst is the reflection of his traumatic emotions and unresolved psychological malaise. The way that Alex plays the character is so quietly explosive and heartbreakingly endearing, exactly because he is not outright blaming everyone or everything in the world for his pain, even if he might seem so for his disconnection with his dad. But James is trying to understand it through his own devices, like coping with his overwhelming emotions with killing animals, then sorting through his memories when Alyssa starts to make him feel again, then finally towards the end of season 1, coming to terms with his love and friendship for Alyssa. The way that James is reopening the floodgates of pain to let himself feel the full force of it, and the harsh reality of growing up, is visceral and really speaks to me in some inexplicable way. James's reattunement to his emotions and psyche outlines a portrait of a youngster trying to equip himself against the world, to try all he can to fight the dark forces and pressures encroaching upon him. Not only are the police in hot pursuit, but also as James stands at the threshold of adulthood, He needs to be able to face the consequences of his actions and to endure the emotional turmoil of life.
James,
Yeah?
will you cuddle me?
Every time when I think of James, my brain locates the image of his innocent expressions in situations that are really absurd or darkly humorous. I know that he is not that innocent because he has been through a lot. But I think that James retains this quality of being untarnished and pureness through it all. And he still believes in something, in the fact that everything will sort themselves out and Alyssa will be safe even if he is not. His sweetness comes through in that. For instance, when he pisses off Alyssa, James prepares flowers for her. And that gesture is so little, but speaks a volume about James's character. This tiny gesture gets me every time because, in my opinion, James did nothing wrong. But still, he tries to do something to repair his relationship with Alyssa, letting his innocence and sweetness shine through. Perhaps in a character that seems to be less opinionated and to have a less robust sense of drive, we say, or proactiveness in decision and choices, as James does pretty much what Alyssa tells him to. But the way James is with people showcases his tenderness. Before I dive into why I think James is good, I do want to clarify that I'm not bypassing the fact that James's sorrow and anger drive his impulse to hurt or maim others, and even to the point where he plots murder against Alyssa. I'm 100% not condoning James's psychopathic impulses, murdering intent enacted onto a young woman, or murder, period. But my impression has always been that even when James is hurting others, he is extremely self-aware of that fact, and that alone addresses his conscious effort in introspection after those crimes. As the story progresses, we get glimpses of James's goodness. He trusts people, he gives people the benefit of the doubt, he is loyal to Alyssa, who wants him but also treats him with volatile affection. He loves his dad despite what he says or thinks about him. And James changes his shape so that other people can have their own happiness.
It looks like a ham.
No. Sorry.
He thinks and cares about other people's feelings, despite what he might say about his own apathy.
I was never Alyssa's protector. She was mine.
James recognizes Alyssa's goodness, her desire to protect him, and in that, reflexively, James himself manifests a form of goodness. When James sees Alyssa happy, he feels hollow on the inside. But he also contemplates whether to leave Alyssa with her dad. He wants Alyssa to be happy, even when that means his own happiness will end. To me, James looks at the world with fearful tentativeness because he has been hurt by it, and he doesn't know why or when it will hurt him again. But he's not afraid of it. He's willing to take chances. Even when James lets his anger show, it is without fail during times when he is compelled to protect Alyssa against the harm of the world. And again, protectiveness, friendship, and love offered to Alyssa are other signs of James's goodness. Now this video is getting rather long and I've only covered a few of James's traits that I see in season 1. But if this is something that interests you guys, I'll surely make a second video specific to James's character arc and development in season 2 that I absolutely adore. So please like this video and subscribe to my channel if you'd like to see more of my analysis and personal commentary on films, books, and possibly some sharing about poetry.